Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to another action figure review, and today we'll be taking a look at the Bandai Movie Monster Series Burning Godzilla version 2.0. Now, this version of Godzilla comes from the 1995 film Godzilla vs. Destroya, which I really like. I think Godzilla vs. Destroya is a very solid movie. I really like how it brings back a lot of elements from the original 1954 film. The idea of Destroya being created from the Oxygen Destroyer, aka the weapon that killed the original Godzilla back in 1954, I think is really cool. Design-wise, I think Destroya could have been better, like his final form. Like, he looks cool, but he doesn't wow me. I think the aggregate Destroyer wows me more. If, like, the final form was more of, like, a giant crab-like thing that looked closer to the aggregate Destroyer, that'd be sick. I would like that a lot. But as he is, again, he still looks cool, but he doesn't wow me. But besides that, I do still really like Godzilla vs. Burning Godzilla. I think it's a nice send-off to the Heisei era of Godzilla movies. Of course, the soundtrack is done by Akira Ifukube, so of course, it's going to be great. And overall, it's a little rough around the edges, but overall, Godzilla vs. Destroya, I think, is a very good movie. I also think, the death of Godzilla, spoiler alert for a, 30-year-old movie, I think the death of Godzilla, I think, is done really well here, too. Again, Akira Ifukube's score is just phenomenal here. But yeah, Godzilla vs. Destroya, I think it's a very solid movie, And that's sort of how I feel about the Heisei era of Godzilla films, they're a little rough around the edges. In fact, there are some that I definitely like more than others, but overall, they're still very solid movies, They're not great like the Heisei era of Gamera movies, but as is, the Heisei era of Godzilla movies, I think they're great. And Godzilla vs. Destroya is no exception. It's a very solid movie as well, and yeah, I like it a lot. I've been rambling on for far too long now, so let's just get into this. To start, we'll take a look at the tag, and for the cover here, we have a nice picture of Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Destroya. I really like this screenshot a lot. At the bottom here, we have Burning Godzilla version 2.0, both in Japanese and in English here. Godzilla 2025. On the back here, we have a silhouette of Godzilla's dorsal plates, Godzilla vs. Destroya, Movie Monster Series, 3, Bandai Namco, and some more legal information at the bottom. The inside here, we just have more legal information, and right here we have a little bit of a bio, but it's in Japanese, so I can't really read it, but that is a bio, of a little bit of information surrounding Burning Godzilla, and yeah, pretty standard as far as Movie Monster Series figure tags go, but still I think it's important to talk about, so that's pretty much it for the tag. Now going back to the figure itself, to start, we'll take a look at the paint. And the painting on this figure looks good. So as you can see, most of this figure is casted in the traditional charcoal gray that we're used to seeing when it comes to Godzilla figures. For the front of the figure here, we have a lot of really nice oranges and yellows for all of the burning bits. And while it's not Da Vinci, I still think the painting here looks very solid and is still just a huge step up from the original Movie Monster Series Burning Godzilla. This doesn't even compare. This looks like there's genuine effort put into this, and I like this. It looks nice. He is missing some burning bits on his shoulder, which I don't, it doesn't bother me that much, After looking at this guy's, the painting here compared to, the colorations in the movie, I don't know, I don't really have a strong opinion here. Normally I'd say, oh, it's missing shoulder paint, this is, they should have painted those, but, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why. It just doesn't really bother me that much. It still looks fine. Maybe it's because the rest of the burning bits look nice or something else that I'll talk about in a second. But, yeah, I don't know. There should be paint on the shoulders, but as is, it doesn't bother me. So, yeah. Going to the nails here, we are going to see that they're painted the traditional yellowish-whitish color that we're used to as far as Godzilla Bandai vinyls go. Going to the head here, we can see that the teeth are going to be the same coloration as the nails. The tongue is going to be a very deep red, and I think that looks nice. The eyes here are going to be painted red with orange pupils, and again, I think the eyes are painted really nicely. He's looking perfectly straight, and overall it looks good. Now, the dorsal plates. Now, these are cool because, I mean, they're painted, but the dorsal plates here are actually casted in translucent orange, which I think looks really nice. The idea of, like, Bandai vinyls being translucent is something that I've seen for a while now, and there have been some figures that I've been very tempted to get, but I don't know. I don't really bother with repaints of figures unless it's, like, integral to the plot. Like, I did recently pick up the Bandai Movie Monster Series Zoffy from Shin Ultraman. Like, that's just a repaint of Ultraman, but, like, he plays a very significant role in the plot. And all of, like, the other, like, repaints that I've seen, they're either too expensive or just, like, don't really pique my interest. So I'm really happy that Bandai decided to make the dorsal plates here a translucent orange. I'll put up, like, better pictures of, like, how this looks with, like, actual light, behind it. And I think it's really cool, like, talking about Transformers for a second, a lot of Transformers figures have this thing called light piping, where instead of having, like, light up eyes, what they'll do is that they'll mold the eyes into, like, a transparent, like, piece of plastic and, like, have it, like, sticking out the back. Like, the eyes are, like, connected to this, like, bigger piece of plastic that, like, sticks out from the back of the head. So that way, when you shine a light through it, it looks like the figure's, like, eyes are glowing without, any electronics. And I feel like you could do that here. Granted, I feel like it might be harder to do so because there's no other point to, like, have the light shine through besides, like, behind it. You could probably stick a light inside of this figure, which isn't really hard to do, but still, the translucent, dorsal plates, I think is a really nice touch, and it's nice to finally have, a movie monster series figure with a little bit of translucent vinyl. I think that's really cool. And of course, the base of the dorsal plates are going to be painted the same color as the rest of the body, both on the insides as well. And yeah. So that's pretty much it for the painting on this figure. Another thing to point out, I almost forgot. All of these little dorsal plates here, these should be painted white, but again, with all the painting that's already on the figure for all of, like, the burning bits, I do not expect Bandai to paint this all the way through. And that's okay. Like, overall, I do like the painting on this figure. Could there have been more? It's a Bandai vinyl. Of course there could have been more. But as is, the painting here, I still think looks nice. So the painting here, I'd say gets a pass. Now, we'll take a look at the articulation, and come on now. The arms can move inwards like so, and outwards like so. The legs can kick forward about that far before the scales start rubbing into each other, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And same with this leg. Kick forward that much, and backwards about that much. It is possible to have the legs move 360, but I don't want to risk, like, damaging the figure, because, again, you do run the risk of, like, scraping, like, the scales and, like, of the detailing here, which is something you don't want to do. But it's a Bandai vinyl. What else is there for me to say? There's not going to be a lot of articulation, so it's a Bandai vinyl. It's fine. It gets a pass. Now, we'll take a look at the sculpt. And the sculpting on this figure, I think, looks great. I think this is pretty much one-to-one how Godzilla looked in Godzilla vs. Destroya. I think the proportions look good. Nothing looks too big or too small or too out of place or anything like that. Like, the sculpting here, I think looks great. It looks very similar to the Godzilla Store exclusive movie monster series Godzilla 94, which makes sense because, like, the burning Godzilla suit is just a modified version of, the Space Godzilla suit, or Godzilla suit from Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, I should say. But yeah, overall, like, the sculpting here, for the most part, looks really nice. The one thing that I will say, these smaller dorsal plates here, I think look a little weird. Specifically the back ones here, they just kind of end flat. Which, I mean, I get why, like, they're making room for, like, the tail and everything like that. But, like, I feel like this could have been done a little better, and this dorsal plate here, it doesn't look awful, but I don't know. I might have done something differently, I'm not sure, but besides that, though, the sculpting here is very nice. And one thing that I want to say, Bandai did not do a very good job with the promotional images, because the promotional images made this guy look like the Playmates burning Godzilla, which I didn't get that figure for a reason, you know. But, you know, the promo images didn't look good, and I wasn't going to get this guy. But then I thought about it, and I decided to give this figure a chance, and I'm glad that I did, because, again, the sculpting here I think looks very nice. So, overall, the sculpting here looks great. Definitely gets a pass. Now, we'll take a look at the detailing, and the detailing on this figure I think looks very nice. So, going to the head here, we can see all these scales going from the head to the neck here are detailed very nicely. And all of the detailing in his face here looks very good. All of the scaling and all of like the, you know, detailing in his face there, like his cheeks there, are detailed very nicely. Everything here is very nicely defined. You know, going down to the torso here, again, just a lot of really nice scaling here. And a lot of creases like in the arms here and like in the legs here. That really gives off that like guy in a suit feel. And I like that. I really do like it when Bandai vinyls do that. You know, the front of the figure, again, just a lot of really nice detailing here. All of like the musculature in his chest here and just all the scaling here, detailed very nicely. Going to his tail here, again, just a lot of really nice scaling, and all of like the creases and everything are detailed very nicely. And obviously that's going to continue all the way to the end here. And again, the top of the tail, just a lot of really nice detailing here. All of like the, you've seen this before, but all of like the dorsal plates like gradually getting smaller until they're just bumps on his tail. It looks nice. I like that. The underside of the tail, there's not going to be a lot of detailing, but there's still going to be some textures here that look nice. Nothing for the underside of the feet. And his dorsal plates are detailed nicely as well. You know, some nice textures here. It might be a little harder to tell because they are made of like a translucent vinyl, but there is still detailing here, and the detailing here still looks very solid. So, that's pretty much it for the detailing. Overall, it looks great. Definitely gets a pass. Now, we'll do some size comparisons. To start, here we have the Godzilla Store exclusive Bandai Movie Monster Series Godzilla 1994. And despite, like, you know, like, Burning Godzilla being a modified version of the suit used in Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, I do like how Bandai was able to make these two, like, look distinct from one another outside of the colorations, because you can see, like, the neck is slightly different from this guy's neck, and just minor differences like that. So I do think it's really cool that Bandai made, like, little touches to the Burning Godzilla sculpt to differentiate it from the 1994 sculpt. I like that a lot. Here we have the Bandai Creation, Destroya. And these two actually scale pretty decently with one another. I did not get the version 2.0 Movie Monster Series Destroya because, well, one, I don't like how it looks, and two, the scaling is atrocious. Like, I'm not expecting one-to-one, like, scale accuracy as far as, like, Bandai vinyls go, but just something better than that. Like, come on now, it's ridiculous, but I digress. Here we have the Bandai Creation Burning Godzilla. You know, this figure here, this is my childhood Burning Godzilla, you know, and this guy will hold a very special place in my heart always, but I'm sorry. This guy just clears. I still love this guy to death. Again, childhood Burning Godzilla and all, but look at him. He looks great. But I digress. Anyway, of course, here we have some hand sanitizer. And here we have Dr. Billy Grant. So at the end of the day, should you get this figure? I'd say yes. The sculpt and detail, great. 10 out of 10. Bandai, they usually knock it out of the park when it comes to the sculpt and detail on their figures. Whether it's the Movie Monster Series line or the SH Monster Arts line. Either way, Bandai does a great job in that regard. The paint, while I think there could have been more, I still think looks really nice here. And again, the fact that they use translucent orange for the dorsal plates, I think is really cool. And it would be great to see them use more like translucent like vinyl for more of their upcoming Movie Monster Series figures, like mainline Movie Monster Series figures, you know. I think it'd be cool to see. The articulation, it's a Bandai vinyl, like, come on now. But still, overall, this is a very nice figure, and I do recommend that you pick it up. As far as price tags go, I got this guy from Hobbylink Japan, and I paid about 25, 26 bucks, which I think is a pretty fair asking price. Standard price as far as like modern movie monster series figures go. So I'm happy with the price. I did have to import this guy, and I did have to pay an additional like 25, 30 bucks. So you're going to pay, like, in total, you're going to pay around like 50 or so dollars, which, take that as you will. I don't mind it, but I'm sure there are other people who might not, afford a figure like this. But I'm sure there are US retailers that sell this figure, I'm fairly certain Beast from the East Collectibles sells this guy. I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that, but I just thought I'd point that out because they have actually been doing a pretty good job with, buying like Bandai vinyls and stuff like that. So yeah, there are other options for you, but as far as like if you are going to get this figure from HobbyLink Japan, then okay, one thing I do want to point out. So when I ordered the Movie Monster Series Kiryu version 2.0, DHL was still available, and that's why the figure got to me as soon as it did. When I went to ship this guy, DHL was not available, because of the tariffs, and I've briefly talked about this before, and there are other YouTube channels that can talk about this, or that have talked about this better than I ever could. So if you want to know more about that, then I'd say go watch their videos. But tariffs, they're going to make collecting, more specifically, like collecting like Japanese, like Godzilla stuff like this guy, it's going to be weird for a little bit. I don't think the tariffs will stick. I don't think they will be, here permanently. But I don't know when they're going to go away. They're not going to be forever. We're definitely going to get through this, but it's going to be weird for a little bit. So just expect that if you're going to import, Japanese Godzilla figures to the US, but I digress. But anyway, I've rambled on for far too long. That is it for today. Have a great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next video. Peace, Zack out.